welcome to my workshop. My name's Darren, and as you probably know, I tend to use a bit of recycled timber from time to time. And one of the things about recycled timber is you've got to be careful of nails. If you hit a nail with your saw, of course, you can damage the saw, but also there's the risk of scratching things up as you move it around. If you've got a nail sticking out of something, you could scratch your workbench, the top of your router table, whatever you're using. So it's always good to get rid of your nails in your timber if you're recycling right at the beginning of the process. Not all nails in timber are easy to see. Sometimes they snap off, leaving little bits embedded behind. Or, and this is rare but it does happen, sometimes a nail is actually hammered into a tree or something as the tree is growing and the tree goes right around it. I've actually seen this with stones. I haven't actually seen it with a nail, but I have heard about it with a nail. But I've definitely seen it with a stone, where the tree actually grew around a stone that was caught in the branch junction of the tree. Yeah, very interesting. Made a hell of a mess when I hit it. So I find the best way to deal with nails is to get rid of them right at the beginning of the project. And for that, I first find them with a handheld metal detector. Now there are a heap of different handheld metal detectors available, like these. And this one's been updated a few times since I bought it. The new version has a laser in it, which is supposed to show you where the nail is exactly, because it's a thin line rather than a big fat fellow like this. But I've had this for years and I'm not going to replace it. It works a treat. I've never had a problem finding a nail with it. So I'm quickly going to show you how to use it. You may have seen something similar to this at an airport as you've been scanned going through. And yeah, it works exactly the same way. And one of those would do the job if you happen to have one. If not, you can buy these online or from many woodworking stores. Carbotech sell one. In fact, I bought this one at Carbotech. They don't stock this brand anymore. So it's very simple to use. Down this end's the handle and you scan it over the surface. This is the detector head up here. Over here we have a sensitivity adjustment. So as we come down here, it will detect metal from further away, and as we get up here all the way, it won't detect anything. I find I use it in this range mostly. If you get down to this end, it is so sensitive it will detect your watch on your other hand, it will detect your belt buckle, screws in your workbench from a kilometre away. Okay, slight exaggeration, but you get the idea. So it can go very sensitive. And then we've got two other buttons here. One says sound and one says vibrate, or vib. I assume it stands for vibrate, but basically it's just a much quieter sound than the other sound button has. So you don't really feel any vibration in the handle, but never mind, it still does the trick. And up here there are two LEDs. This LED comes on when you first turn the unit on and flashes, just to let you know the unit's working and your battery's fine. And then when you find a nail or get close to something metallic, this lights up. So let's have a go at that. Here you can see I've set my piece of timber up between my workbench and my outboard support, and the reason for that is because now underneath it, of course, I've got a big empty area of air with no metal in it. If I was to do this on the workbench, it would pick up the screws in the workbench. So I will check the centre of it like this, and then to do either end, we'll just get the ends over the air and do the same thing. So the first thing to do is set the sensitivity of the detector. So let's move the piece of timber out of the way. So as we know, we've got nothing there, nothing that's going to interfere with it, and turn it on. And let's turn the sensitivity down. That's obviously too much. There we go. So we're pretty good in that area, and I'm just going to wave it over a screw in the bench. Okay. Okay, well that piece of timber's good, no nails. That's a bit boring for you though, let's find one with a nail in it. This one has a nail. Okay, and there's a nail. I mean this one we can see, it's pretty obvious, but there it is. So I'm just going to put a little mark around that so it's easy to find later. And I think that's where it sticks out there. Yeah, that's where it's sticking out. So this is an old roofing beam and it's been nailed through that way. Now you'll notice on a piece of timber this thick, I'm rotating it and checking it from every side. That's just to make sure that if there's anything buried towards the centre, I'm going to get that too. Because obviously there's a limit to how deep this penetrates the wood. So about now you're probably wondering just how sensitive these metal detectors are and what they're going to find. That nail I found before was a large nail. But what about something small? Well, let's try these little tiny brads. I'm going to put one of these 15mm brads, 18 gauge brad, into this piece of timber, flip it over, and we'll see if we can detect it from the other side. Just one single brad. Okay, this is a 42mm thick piece of timber. The brad is 15mm long. It's been driven below the surface by about 2mm, which means that the tip of the brad is about 25mm, just there, below the surface. Alright, so let's try that. I'm going to bump the sensitivity up a bit on this fella. So I've got the sensitivity turned pretty well up full, almost full, and there we go. Once you've located your offending nails, it's time to remove them, and there's a few different ways you can do that. One thing I do recommend, because they can very easily break, a pair of safety glasses. You don't want to get hit in the eye with a piece of nail or even the tool you're using as it suddenly comes free. Okay, so first and most obvious way is going to be to grab yourself a claw hammer and pull it out. That's easy. If your claw hammer can't quite grab it, then we've got pliers and pincers. Now, pincers are usually the better of the two options here. That's what they're actually designed for. So we're going to grab our pincers. Actually, first of all, I'm just going to straighten this nail. Obviously it's been bent over, so I'm just going to straighten the nail. You could use the claw hammer on this particular one, but there would be times when you couldn't, and so a pair of pincers, you grab the nail down at the base, and you need some wood either end because you're going to use that as your fulcrum, and basically this levers the whole thing out with the tip of the pincers acting like a pivot point on the fulcrum. So there you go, and just pulls the nail out. They're the two easy ways. Now you've got this nail here that's been driven through the timber and bent over, and it's been bent for years. We could try and straighten that up and try and bash it back through the timber with a hammer. So we could lift the nail like so, and then try and tap it back down. But because we're trying to tap around a corner, and because the nail's already been bent, yeah, that's just not going to work. But if you'll have a look at this piece of timber anyway, it's cracked right up to here. So I really don't want this section anyway. So on super awkward nails like this, you can just cut the end of the timber away and you're good. So that's what I'm going to do with this particular nail. Okay, so that brings us to the end. I've got rid of the end with the nail in it off my piece of timber there. All my pieces of timber are now nail free, ready to be milled, cut to size and used for my project. So a metal detector is something absolutely well worth having if you're using recycled timber. If you're buying your timber from your hardware store all the time or your timber suppliers, then theoretically they've done all this and you shouldn't need to. But if you find timber in bulk collections, or as I did when a building was demolished and I took some of the roofing beams. But anyway, great way to look after your equipment is to have a metal detector. It's something I probably only use a few times a year, and for that reason I take the battery out when it's not in use, and that way the battery doesn't leak inside the unit. Hope that's been of some help. Have a great day, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye for now.